Alright, let me try this again real quick. Okay, testing, testing. Had to get my microphone back into sync. Alright, let me try this again real quick. Okay, testing, testing. Alright, we should be good. Alright, hey everybody, let me just the stream will start in full in just a moment. I'm just trying to figure out how to okay, full screen. Okay, live mode, slideshow editing. Okay. Again, I'll explain in just a sec. Okay, so just want to enable animated images. Yes. Change slides by clicking on the background. Yes. Okay, so let me just try this real quick. No, I don't want to. I don't want it to be brought over to a second monitor because then I won't be able to see anything. Hold on, that's not. Let me just go back to here real quick. Loop and repeat after. No. Full screen window disabled. Disabled. Let me try that real quick. Ah, here we are. Yeah, so I just had to, what I basically had to do was disable, like, the presenter console. Alright, let me just set this to start from first slide. Alright, we should be good. Alrighty then. Let me just go into OBS. Let me just start up the let me just get some of my royalty-free relaxation music going with Celestial Theta by Kevin MacLeod, I believe. Ah, hello. Yep, that seems good. Just to set the mood. Yeah, so everyone can sit back, relax as I rant and ramble all throughout the course of this rewrite, because why the hell not? Alright, let me just go to OBS right here, and hello everybody. Oh, I meant not yet. Oh, a second, I think I got the wrong thing there. Which one? Ah, here it is. There we go. And now we're ready. One second. Maybe if I just move this up around a little bit, or that'll have to do for now. Hello, everybody. Grant here from the Orterber channel, and welcome to one and all to my little presentation of how I would personally revamp or rewrite, redo, recast, and so on. Survive the 8 episodes of Surviving Earth, because as I talked about in a previous live stream, I felt like Surviving Earth wasn't as bad as some people would said it would be, but to me it was just okay because of many either far too glaring of occasional scientific inaccuracies, or in turn undermining its educational value, or how some of the story elements just feel too clean and the outcomes and such for like the main segments. But I'll get into that more as we go along here. For now, hold on a second, I got a Discord notification. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, I'll explain more as I go along. I might go on some tangents and such, but after multiple delays of various live streams, this is finally here. So, with that out of the way, let us begin. So, I will start off with the positives, because why not? I actually do like the triple segment format of where, like, the main meat of the episode is of life going on during extinction events and such, during the stories and so on, while centering on a single main protagonist organism and such, sort of Walking with Dinosaurs style in a way. Whereas we also get a slight post-extinction segment set either like 5 or 10 million years after to showcase, life after extinction But I do like how it's actually a little bit more decentralized in storytelling, because in the post-extinction segment it is, because in those they don't really have as much runtime to tell a detailed story on a singular organism. So they instead go for a variety type approach, I guess you could say. And of course we got the little present day segment that discusses how things relate to the Anthropocene and such. In concept, I do love that idea, even though I feel like some of the messaging, it just ends up way too painfully centrist, to be frank. And I do like this, like there is some very nice speculative biology in here, like in the episode When the Ocean Shrank. You have the orthocones using bioluminescence, almost akin to like the sort of color-changing abilities of modern cuttlefish, in a sense. And again, like a lot of the creature design is also very strong. I even talked to one of the paleo artists who participated in the production of the series, Joshua Kanape, by the way, and such. So, like, again, this rewrite's not meant. This sort of proposed revamp or whatever is not meant to be an attack on any of the creators or paleo artists who worked on this show or anything like that. I have to make it abundantly clear. But again, like, there's some good stuff there. Another example would be, of course, the Diplocaulus parental care featured in episode 5. Like, I feel similar to, like, what some modern amphibians do, compared to, like, a few others that just leave the eggs for, well, defend for themselves, in a sense, which is what shows the Ariops in said episode. Again, stuff like that is very well done. Okay. But yeah, this is basically me giving improvements, and hold on a second. I need to quickly hold on a sec. For some reason, oh yeah, I see. I almost forgot something. I'm gonna go to the pop-out chat here. Copy this, and then let's see here. And it seems like the chat replay box is broken again. Probably due to something relating to it being updated or whatever, YouTube security protocol or whatever, so that's great. I really gotta update that, figure out a workaround for that in the future, so yeah, sorry, the comments themselves won't be shown in the video. But, yes. Okay. I made sure to have at least a live chat replay on, so yeah. But back to what I was talking about itself. Again, it's a lot. There are some very good elements here, and again, I do feel like a few of the episodes in the series are actually very good, such as, When the Earth Burned and When the Ocean Sank. Those two I feel like are the two best episodes of the show, in my opinion, because they really play to the series' strengths the best, in my opinion, as well as following a decently large enough amount of scientific accuracy. But now for the cons, the janky pacing, like, there's a real janky pacing because, like, this show was designed to originally be presented on the NBC channel. So because that was designed with commercial breaks in mind, but they really didn't seem to make any edits for that when they released it on stuff like the Peacock platform or their website or anything like that, which in turn required a bunch of, like, constant resummarizing of, like, things after the commercial break. And that can be was a constant distraction. Constantly distracting, rather, to say it. I do think there was one time, like, again, I am reiterating some of the stuff I talked about in my last stream when discussing Surviving Earth, but still, there is one time where I do think that the commercial break format was utilized well, and, like, at the climax of When the Seas Died, shows stuff during the hypercane, the predicaments our protagonist animals are in and such, and then boom, cut to black, and then returns in the aftermath of the hypercane storm. That, I feel like, is done well, but that's probably the only time where they actually pull it off. There's also, things are way too clean, and actually, hold on a second. I need to go back and, one moment, I need to go back to here and just check one thing really fast. Hold on. Slideshow settings, mouse pointer visible. yeah, just add that in there to go back to here. There we go. So let me just return now to OBS. Okay, now we're good. Okay. Yeah, now my mouse cursor should be more visible now. But yeah, like, there's too many happy outcomes for a show focused on extinction events itself. Like, I'm not saying it needs to be full-on, you know, Jurassic Fight Club levels of outright, you know, edgelord gore and that kind of stuff, but what I am asking for, basically, is, you know, them to be more realistic and pragmatic about how to portray the animals. Especially with the Spinosaurus mother at the end of the main segment for When the Seas Died, which is a really annoying issue. Again, there are also scientific inaccuracies even for the time production, because, for those who are wondering what I mean by that, this series started production as early as, like, you know, 2021, before even Prehistoric Planet came out. Although it mainly went into its full swing around 2022, 3, and 4, you know, like filming and such. But even then, like, there are going to be still, like, even for around 2021, there were some serious issues with the scientific accuracy and such as, like, calling Dimetrodon a reptile, which was already which is already something that's been frowned upon for about, like, a decade, so that's really stupid. And something that's more of a minor gripe for me, but, like, the episodes were released chronologically out of order, in a sense, like, of presenting extinctions. So, for example, the Ordovician Mass Extinction episode, When the Ocean Shrank, is actually episode 6, when it should have been episode 1. So, that's just an example of what I'm referring to. So yeah, the way I'm going to be presenting these episodes is in the order I would have released each of the 8 episodes. So yeah, with that out of the way, yeah. In my revamp, the format would be kept pretty much the same, but some serious changes would need to be made otherwise. So, let's begin with When the Ocean Shrank, which I would keep the same title and such. Maybe the writers didn't study. I don't know. Again, this is not meant to be a completely super serious university presentation or whatever. It's just me rambling a bit while I explain my thoughts. Though I will explain where I got many of my knowledge and sources from, where I sourced a lot of the information from and such, at the end, of course, for the sake of some profession, for there to be at least some professionalism, obviously. But yeah, I would actually keep the plots of both main segments roughly the same. It's just that the problem is that Sacabambaspis, the jawless fish featured as the protagonist, would probably be extinct by the end of the Ordovician. So instead, I would go for either Pandarodus, which is a species of conodont, or genus of conodont, that actually survived, which we do have records of actually surviving past the Ordovician extinction event. Or if they wanted to stick to the same group as Sacabambaspis, they could have gone with, like, a late Ordovician species or genus like Astraspis, shown here. And as you can tell, on the bottom of each piece of artwork of paleo art used here that depicts the animals shown, while I discuss, I always make sure I have, like, I'm almost always making sure to credit the artist who created the paleo art, obviously. So yeah, also the genus they used, the bobbit worm, was portrayed as, like, I don't think they say in the episode, but it's from a genus that's from, like, the Silurian, not the late Ordovician, so I would just keep it as, like, indeterminate fully, I guess, because we do know bobbit worms evolved around the Ordovician, but yeah. Again, like, I would keep a lot of, like, the main plot elements the same, so why not both Pandarodus and Astraspis? Yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, I feel like my revamp would allow the show to have just a little more budget if it just allows, like, adding 1 or 2 more species in per segment, you know? So, like, maybe, like, you could have Astraspis, like, be the main protagonist of the main segment, but also have Pandarodus featured in, like, both, you know, as shown here in the slide, both the Ordovician and Silurian segments to show that, like, yes, fish do survive the Ordovician mass extinction, obviously. rather and provide a bit of connection between the two segments and a bit of synergy, so to speak, which is I feel like the series could have had a lot more of. As for the Silurian segment, I would have included like the orthocone relative, or you get the idea. Dawsonoceras, as well as the giant Eurypterid Jacalopterus, because those are both from around the Silurian. And I would have done this to show like the change in like dynamics between the two, because in the Ordovician, it was mainly the orthocones that were like the main top predators of the ocean, whereas in the Silurian, the Eurypterids would have really began to supplant them, so to speak. Because the Silurian was around the time where Eurypterid diversity did peak, before they began their long, arduous decline until around the Permian, going extinct around during either the late Permian or like the very end Permian mass extinction. But we'll get back to that extinction event when we get to it. But yeah, like the plot-wise, I would say that can be kept pretty much the same. I feel like that's handled pretty well and such. And again, like you could have either Pandarodus or Astraspis be the main protagonist. Just feature both though to showcase, you know, like Pandarodus surviving into the Silurian and such. Well, and feature it alongside newly evolved jawed fishes. You get the idea. But yeah, again, like When the Ocean Shrinks, one of the best episodes of the show, so I wouldn't change too much about it plot-wise and such. It just needed a bit more fine-tuning. Next up, and this one's a bit of a doozy, because the Carboniferous rainforest collapse, which is what the episode When the Forest Collapsed surrounds, is not as severe of an extinction event, so to speak, as some might think, because like a lot of groups did survive, but the main die-off was mainly on the plant side of things, where like the scale trees are no longer dominant. And again, like up until like literally a few hours ago, or less than an hour ago, before the stream began, I was going back and forth, like at the last minute, whether to have the second episode focused on this event itself, or the Olsen's extinction, which marks the boundary between the early and middle Permian, because Olsen's extinction actually, you know, is what wiped out a lot of the basal pelycosaurs, a lot of you know, the diectid amphibians, a lot of more basal temnospondals, and so on. While the mid-Permian showed like the rise of the therapsids, rather. Excuse me. The problem with that is that I can't really find like a two connected formations or something like that, or fossil sites that are connected to like on different sides of the boundary. For example, like, you know, early Permian wise, you find a lot of that in like the red beds of Texas and Oklahoma. But middle Permian wise, you really don't find much of like synapsid fossils from North America and such. I'm just giving an example. Dimetrodon did seem to have died out during like Olsen's extinction. And basically, long story short, there is I just wasn't sure how to make it work right. It's tough to find out what's your favorite character in each episode, pal. They're not really, I mean, they are technically characters, but like species and such. Like, again, I feel like if you're talking about like portrayals or designs, I feel like the previous episode did that pretty well and such, so I wouldn't have changed too much there. I would have probably had Dimetrodon in the Permian segment for like When the Forest Collapsed look a little bit more mammalian, but only just barely, you know? Just barely, because it is still meant to have a lot of reptilian features. I put that in quotations, of course. But yeah. But again, like, the problem was trying to find, like, faunal assemblages that, you know, are aligned with Olsen's extinction, like, in like, this Navigator app and such was actually a bit too difficult. So, my arms are kind of tied to just stick with the Carboniferous rainforest collapse. So I did the best I gave my damn best effort to have, you know, to have it be like such, like, again, so I would have like the plot, timing, locations of both segments be roughly the same in like Central North America. I would have Milosaurus replace Dendromia, because Milosaurus is a bit more basal in like the Pelycosaur family tree, so to speak. and did in fact seem to have survived and was a survivor of like the Carboniferous rainforest collapse. So I feel like that would be a smart choice there. Again, a lot of this did rely on reading some of the Wikipedia listings and such, which are like very basic scientific research like this. I'm pretty sure isn't the worst thing in the world. Again, this is just meant to be a bit of me rambling at times and so on. But yeah, Oligotypus would have replaced Meganeura because Meganeura was probably too far out, was a little too far out of time, whereas Oligotypus actually survived the Carboniferous rainforest collapse and did survive into the early Permian. I would have it featured in both main segments and such. And the only image I could actually find of restoration of it was actually of like a Zoo Tycoon 2 mod, which is why I don't have the artist credited down here, because the image itself already credits the artist from 10th Architects Oligotypus. So yeah, that's the mod. But yeah. But anywho, I would in turn do that. And like Areops didn't evolve until like right after the Carboniferous rainforest collapse. So I instead have the Tendispondal Actiobates filling its role, and I couldn't find any paleo art of it, but I do have this member of its family, Acaloma Comnisi, as like a bit of reference to what it might have looked, as references to what it could have looked like, and such. The same thing happens with like the primitive amphibian or tetrapod Paleoherpetin, which replaces Orthocanthus. There should be no vertebrates. This is a Carboniferous rainforest collapse. It should be entirely about bugs. I mean, that's the thing though, because like, you know, a lot of like the griffin flies, like Arthroplura, for example, actually did survive into the Permian, albeit not very long, and the griffin flies made it like all the way up until like the Great Dying. So I wanted to use like my version of When the Forest Collapsed as an opportunity for this series to like debunk those issues rather than create more misinformation. And of course, in my rewrite or revamp, I would have Dimetrodon Cotyolorhynchus, excuse me, actually described as synapsids, not reptiles. And of course, like I'm not talking too much about the present day segments, but I feel like the one for this episode was the most egregious in that, like, it was saying, oh yeah, rainforests being cut down is bad, but we just need to leave them alone and they'll regenerate, which is technically true, but they don't seem to mention of how like it could take centuries for rainforests to truly bounce back. So yeah, that was a massive oversight. And again, like, out of the revamps, this is the one I'm the least confident about, because like I should have been Olsen's Extinction instead, but again, I couldn't find enough information on like formations and final assemblages in time. So this is the best I could work with at the moment. Next up is When the Earth Burned, which in my opinion is the best episode of all the 8 we got. So I wouldn't really change too much about the plot. I would just have Indostransevia actually referred to it as such. And the thing is that, like, Indostransevia is from, like, the Salivuro Formation, which is not, like, from the very, very end of the late Permian, but, like, a few million years prior to it. But I have sort of a rule I talked about back in, like, my Prehistoric Planet review from 2022, where it's, like, if a genus is, like, still found around 5 million years, up to 5 million years prior to that extinction event, like, it's probably fair enough that they could have made it, or, like, a descendant of it that we don't have in the fossil record could have made it there, something along those lines. And the fauna of much of the Salivuro Formation, yes, it is from Russia, is, like, the uppermost layers of it are just barely get into, like, that 5 million year threshold, in my opinion, because the Great Dying was around, like, about 252 to, like, 251 million years ago, so, like, it just barely clears that threshold. So I wouldn't change too much there. What I would do, actually, is include a few species from a few genera from, like, the very end of the Permian, like, the very, 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 like, terminal end of the Permian period of Russia in there. Mainly Archosaurus, because you know, it's to provide a better linkage between the late Permian and mid-Triassic segment. So I would definitely do that, because Archosaurus is from the latest Permian and such. Like, in the episode itself, like, that one Gorgonopsid that falls to its death, like, you could showcase, like, an Archosaurus feeding on that Gorgonopsid's corpse, for instance. And then, like, have some narration saying, what you see here is just a pinch, just a sliver of what's to come. I would also have, like, the basal dapsid, Rautiania replace Suminia, because Suminia is kind of, according to, like, the Wikipedia listing, like, it survived up until the Great Dying, but looking at everywhere else, it seems much more like a mid-Permian Thrapsid, I keep on mispronouncing that, my apologies, Thrapsid, and such. So just to play it safe, I would actually have Rautiania take its place as, like, the arboreal animal that gets its hands stuck in some tree resin and so on. Yeah, and basically, I couldn't find any art of it in time, but this is, like, a close relative of it from, like, the Permian of England. Weigeltosaurus looks like, so it's for reference, of course. And finally, you know, the Middle Triassic segment could have utilized a Dicynodont as like an animal that could have made, like, I don't know, a cameo appearance even. And my Revampler would be just a little bit more of a budget to allow for that. So I would probably go for something from the same formation as the likes of Dongasuchus. So it would be Rabidosaurus, which is the Dicynodont you see here. Also, like, I know this is technically like a white background, but, like, while editing this slideshow, I chose to just have this green border here on the image because, like, the white background on this image has, like, a tiny bit of gray to it. And once you see the differences between those two shades, you can't unsee it. It's just so distracting. But back on topic, like, I think finally, I do think maybe, you know, Stransiva could have been portrayed as a tiny little less social, like maybe more of a monogamous pair rather than, like, a harem like you see in modern African lions. But that's more of a nitpick and such. So plot-wise, I would largely keep things the same. I would just add in a few more animals and replace one with another. And finally, of course, like, having like Simba Spondylus not, you know, beach himself like a Patagonian orca, because I feel like that, from what I've heard, that's mainly due to, like, the orca's very high intelligence, which I'm not sure if this ichthyosaur would have had. But yeah, I ain't been talking a lot, so I need to get some water. I will be right back. I'll be back in a few minutes. Also, I'll just reset this music. There we go. I'll be back. Alright, everybody, I am back, so let us resume. Next up, I would have When Pangea Factor, taking the place of When the Climate Broke, because When the Climate Broke focuses on, like, the Carnian Pluvial episode, where I feel like this should have been a showcase of, like, the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event. and I already when I decided on this, I knew exactly where to go with almost entirely, which is the Elliott Formation in South Africa. Because like I wanted to show, because with When the Earth Burned, like that was focused on Siberian traps and the animals living around it. Here I wanted to have like it be a focus on like how a global mass extinction truly affects even organisms away from the epicenter. And as you can see here, South Africa is quite a bit away from like the main Central Atlantic Magnetic Province, or camp, which is what started the breakup of Pangea. On like the latest Triassic, you can see on the bottom here, where on the top you can see like the earliest Jurassic for a reference. And in the latter of these two images here, you can see like the very starts of the Atlantic Ocean, but also some inland seas showing further rifting of the continents and such. And like literally, the Elliott Formation's like divided into a late Jurassic, early Jurassic split. Speaking of, that's actually why like I would actually choose to have like the Cynodonts, Scalnodontoides be the main protagonist of the episode. And for like big complete revamps like this, I include like the species name too, because why not? And such, and so on. And it could easily fill in the role that like Ichiguaskia had in like the original episode and such, because it belonged to like a group of Cynodonts that were largely herbivorous. And I would also have likes of indeterminate Coelophysids and Rauisuchiids in this episode. Like you don't see any pale art right here on the slide of like a Coelophysid, which we'll get to in a bit. But as for the Rauisuchid, like this is Phaseolosuchus of Argentina for reference, like a sculpture of it and such, like of what the Rauisuchid could have looked like. I also would have included an indeterminate Atiosaur, because while we don't have any Atiosaur fossils definitively from the Elliott Formation, we do have some potential footprints of them from this formation and such, or rather from like areas close by in southern Africa, which could be just close enough. It's a bit of speculation, I will admit, but it's also meant to show a bit more of like the late Triassic taxa that didn't make it in, or groups that didn't make it across the extinction barrier, and Atiosaurs would be one of them and such. Like the extinction event segment here would be to showcase like the decline of the Pseudotsuchians as the dominant life forms on land, while the already rising dinosaurs, such as the sauropodomorph Melanorosaurus and the Coelophysids, would start to become more numerous. It'd be kind of like think New Blood from Walking with Dinosaurs 1999, but with a bit more of a disaster movie flair to it, or even like a bit of disaster movie flair to it, like and of the fallout that would come with like the global effects, like the acid rain and thinning oxygen levels, I believe, and so on. Yeah. And of course, like the episode, the segment itself would focus mainly on like the struggles of the Scalnodontoides, which was by far like one of, if not the most, like one of the most common fossil finds from the lower Elliott. So I think that would make almost too much sense. And of course, like that'd be during the event, which took place around 201 million years ago. Meanwhile, like the post-extinction segment would flash forward 5 million years later to the upper Elliott in the early Jurassic. You'd have your Cynodont representation with Megazostrodon. You could have like Cleverosaurus, which was a rhynchocephalian reptile. You could have like it portrayed by like a modern you could use footage like a modern Tuatara and like just slightly alter it with CGI to make it look like the restoration of a Cleverosaurus. And I think you could definitely get away with it. Again, I'm not a special effects expert, but you could get my idea. You would have Massospondylus, obviously, showcased here in this little mural, as part of this mural by Joshua Canupe. Megapnosaurus, which is a Coelophysid, like would actually be fully described here, and there's some paleo right there. Dracovenator is like a Dilophosaurus-sized animal that lived in the Elliott Formation, the upper Elliott, and that would definitely have a major role in it. Like I could definitely see it, hunting, maybe trying to hunt like a juvenile Massospondylus, sort of like. And finally, of course, like you would have your big Walking with Dinosaurs Pliosaurus moment so to speak, with Ledu Mahadi, which is like one of the earliest true sauropods potentially, and you know, like it makes like a grand entrance. Like maybe you could potentially like a you can see like a juvenile like massive spondylus getting attacked by a Dracovenator, only for a small herd of Ledu Mahadi scaring away the Dracovenator or something like that. You know, something along those lines. Like plot wise, When the Climate Broke wasn't bad, but I just feel like, you know, it just lied a lot in its post-extinction segment by saying, oh yeah, the Suzukians are no longer dominant. But they kind of still partially were towards the end of the Triassic with, like, the Rasukians and such. Rasukids, rather. And Atiosaurs and so on. Whereas the Triassic-Jurassic mass extinction is what fully cemented the dinosaurs as the rulers of the land. So yeah, I would definitely have it focused on instead of Volcanodon. Ledu Mahadi is more... I believe larger, so I think I believe it is more directly from the Upper Elliot as well. I want most of the attacks obviously to come from the main formations and such, so I think that's why I went with it. But now that you say that, let me take a look at something really quick. Volcanodon isn't from the Upper Elliot. Right? Just gotta make sure of that. No, it's from, like, the forest sandstone. I mean, it could have... I mean, Volcanodon could also work in this role, I suppose, but... yeah, either Volcanodon or, Ledu Mahadi. Either one of those could have worked. Could work in this role. But, yeah, that's a fair point. But, anywho, back to what I was talking about. Next up, we have When the Seas Died, and oh boy, if you look here, you can see a certain little gif of Spinosaurus getting thrashed about. And that's because in the main extinction segment, I would have both the mother pliosaur, which I would have properly labeled as Brachiocainus, and the mother Spinosaurus die by the end of the main extinction segment. Like, it's pretty obvious that the mother Spinosaurus got hit in the head with, like, a boulder while it was being thrashed about by the tsunami. I don't care if it's Spinosaurus. No way this dinosaur would survive that. That dinosaur is dead. D-E-A-D, dead. So, yeah, I would definitely, you know, again, it falls into the series problem of just being, like, dumbing things down too much at times to try and please a wider audience, and being too clean in its outcomes, and I think this is definitely a side effect to that. And, like, you could still have, like maybe, like, one of the baby Spinosaurus chicks surviving, like, the storm through sheer luck by, you know, like, hiding underneath some debris while the rest of its family dies. And then, meanwhile, you could also show like, the baby, Brachiosaurus calf also, having survived the storm, but, like, be injured in the process with a broken flipper. And then, like, the narration could say that both their futures are uncertain and in doubt. Meanwhile, you could show, like, the Portorontus... God damn it. The Basal Mosasaurid. The Portorontosaurus, I think that's how you pronounce it. Feeding, like, the corpse of the Spinosaurus that was, like, washed out to sea. And then flash forward to... then flash forward to the post-extinction segment, because this episode, you know, covers, like, the Bornarelli event, yeah, which is also known as, like, the Cenomanian Turonian mass extinction, which, in my opinion, like, I really am glad that paleo documentary finally covers it, and this one does an okay job. The original episode does an okay job, I just feel like it's a little too clean at points. Also, Ichthyornis, while it did technically survive that event, all the fossils we have are, like, from the North America, and it was likely a native or possibly endemic to, like, the areas around the Western Interior Seaway. So, I would, granted, it's possible vagrants could have also extended their range out into, like, areas of the Tethys and such, potentially, but to play it safe, I would actually have, like, the Levant Eantiornithian bird, Eantio Phoenix replaced Ichthyornis in the Cenomanian bit, like, and such. And it would also provide, and for those who are wondering, it's like a member of the Avisaurids, which are kind of like the birds of prey of their time, and such. And also, of course, wouldn't have the Spinosaurus' hands pronate in that one shot, because in 2026 that is an inexcusably bad error. Like, the only theropod dinosaurs that maybe could have pronated their hands were the Megaraptorids, and even then that's a big maybe. And I would also include, like, with this slightly higher budget, I would include, like, maybe a scene of a Spinosaurus feeding on Oncopristis, and, like, narration saying that, like, oh, the Oncopristis haven't been very numerous at this time for a while, so the Spinosaurus mother is forced to venture out further to the coastline, or something like that. And I would also include, like, Platypterygius. I hope I pronounced that right. The Platypterygius, which was one of the last ichthyosaurs, to showcase how they too died out. Like, maybe in just a cameo role to show them, like, that the ichthyosaurs were also victims of the Bonarelli event, much akin to the pliosaurs and Spinosaurids. Because the Bonarelli event, was a decently sized extinction event. Like, Spinosaurids, Ichthyosaurs, Pliosaurs, all were either wiped out by the event or hit so hard that they just never recovered. Same it goes for roughly, like, the Carcharodontosaurids as well. The Rebechisauropods, I think, are another example of that too. And, like, the fall of those main theropod groups is what allowed, Abelisaurids, Megaraptorins, and Tyrannosaurids to really rise to the top later on in the Cretaceous. So, yeah. But, of course, this episode is mainly focused on the marine side of things, which is fair. But I would give the post-extinction segment Rugops or Carcharodontosaurus. Again, I think this episode wanted to focus more on, like, the marine side of things, so I would respect that. So for the post-extinction segment, it would focus, again, the problem is that trying to find, like, good Santonian formations is pretty difficult, but I found something that could work. It's from the Hungarian Szabanya Formation, hopefully I pronounced that right, and the surrounding seas. So, like, the nodosaur that would, like, sink to the bottom and become a reef would be, like, Hungarosaurus and such. Again, I'm not sure about the accuracy of the sculpture here, but you get the idea. I would still include Crotoxyrhina and such in the episode, but I wouldn't have it be immediately fed upon by the Tylosaur Mosasaur, because, like, around this time, like, in the early on in, like, the Santonian epoch of the Cretaceous, let's just basically say that a Tylosaurus species would have been much smaller and about the same size of Hungary's in Europe. Yeah, I was willing to stretch things out just a little bit here because Europe was an archipelago at the time, like a tropical archipelago. And it was close enough to northern Africa, so, and again, like, this is more of like a marine-focused episode, so I think you could stretch things out just a little bit, but not much else beyond that. But yeah, it would focus on, like, rather than having, like, a Tylosaurid Mosasaur feed on the Crotoxyrhina, I would probably have it be plopping more of, like, the Crotoxyrhina and, like, a Tylosaurus canadensis, like, Neopelicus or Kenzenensis. Sorry. Fighting over, like, the corpse of like, the Noasaur. No, not Noasaur. Nodosaur. Oh, crap, my battery's running on my laptop. Gotta plug that in real quick. But, yeah. And I would also have, like, the Avisaurid Boxitornis featured as, like, you can basically, like, recolor the model of the Enantio Phoenix for this, and I think it would do the job fine. And, like, I know, like, the Avisaurids were more, like, focused on terrestrial ecosystems, but like here you could potentially, we do have in our own world, we have like the sea eagles, for instance, so you could argue like it's a bit of a speculative stretch, but maybe you could have like this Avasaurid feeding on, like, take advantage of like be stranded, like flown out to sea by wind and like feed in like parts of like the Hungarosaurus corpse, while like the shark and mosasaur fight over the carcass, something like that. But yeah, this one is a little tricky to figure out in terms of the post-extinction segment, but yeah. And now the one I had the most fun redoing or revamping, the episode When the Asteroid Fell. You know, keep the same title. It'll be obviously still focused on the KPG mass extinction event, but instead of Alaska, like the Prince Creek Formation, I would have it, which has actually been somewhat overplayed in paleodocs over the years, like, you know, March of the Dinosaurs, Planet Dinosaur, Prehistoric Planet, Walking the Dinosaurs 2013, and so on. I would have this take place in the on Seymour Island, on what's now Seymour Island, Antarctica. Specifically, like, with the Lopez v. Bartodano Formation for, like, the extinction event and the Maastrichtian, while the La Meseta and Cross Valley formations would form the basis for, like, the post-extinction segment and the latest Paleocene. And one big thing, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that the goddamn global heat waves and, you know, global wildfires and tektite showers would be shown. Because, boom, like, this is some beautiful paleo art by Isaiah Cole Torre, and, like, just, like, about roughly an hour after, like, the asteroid hit, this would have been going on all over the world. We never saw that in the original episode, and that's what ruined it for me. So, yeah, we're, like, again, I'm not trying to say it needs to go full-on edgelord mode, and not even close to that, but this is what happened. Or is roughly what happened for, like, a few hours of the first day of the KPG. So, I would definitely show that. Another reason I actually would have this be part of the South, it would be focused on, like, Seymour Island, is because the original When the Asteroid Fell was shot in, like, Chile, like, in, like, a Chilean national park with, like, all the monkey puzzle trees and such. I would basically have, actually, let me take a look at the stream preview quick. Is the music too loud? The original When the Asteroid Fell was shot in, like, Chile, like, in, like, a Chilean national park with, like, all the monkey puzzle trees. Okay, that's not too bad. Just, adjust this real quick. Okay, moved my mic a bit closer. But yeah, like, the problem is that, like, the Prince Creek Formation might have not looked too much like that. It would have looked more like the modern boreal forests of like, Canada today, just without some of the more modern plants like grasses and such. But if they chose, whereas, you know, like, Seymour Island and such would have been a better pick, would have fit better with, like, the Chilean national forests and such. You get the idea. But yeah. Hold on a second. Wait. Hold on a second. Click back onto here. Excuse me. Yeah, so, going back to this. Yeah, you would definitely have a sequence of, like, the global wildfires occurring. Like, even if, like, Seymour Island wasn't hit by, like, the brunt of this, it still would have happened. Like, maybe show at least a tiny bit of it would show at least, like, a tiny bit of wildfires and such. And speaking of, that would bring me to, like, the main cast, where I would have, you know, I would have the potential the potentially basal waterfowl. It's still a bit up in the air. Vagavus, specifically the type species Vagavus ei, be the protagonist of the episode. It kind of lived a bit like a mix between, like, a modern duck and a loon or grebe. It might have been partially ancestral to modern ducks, geese, and swans. Recent research says that might not be the case. Again, it's still a little up in the air, but I would also include, like, maybe the washed up corpse of a mosasaur known as Kakaifilu, right here. to show like the KPG's effects on marine ecosystems as well. Perhaps if even like a few dead Pachydiscus ultimuses as well, which would have looked akin to something like this. But there would have also have been like some a few, of course, non-avian dinosaurs shown, and we do have Megaraptoran and Hadrosaurid remains, albeit indeterminate ones from this formation. Looking at some of the furthest excuse me, I usually don't talk this much. I would probably have, looking at like nearby Argentinian formations, which were biogeographically pretty close to the Antarctic Peninsula around the Maastrichtian, like you could have had like a Megaraptoran akin to Maip and a Hadrosaurid akin to like Gonkoken, and it would have probably sealed the deal. But you could also go a little further than that, and also in this extra slide here, showcase like many other like seabirds from this formation as well, like the other Vagavus species as well. Okay, maybe not Pujatapuli, because that was only discovered just this year. I mean, had Pujatapuli been discovered and named like a few years prior, I would have definitely have had this be the main star of this extinction event segment, but it would be way too unfair to the production team to like take off points for that. So yeah, I would still stay with Vagavus here. We could also show the likes of the other species of Vagavus and such, and so on, as well as Polaronus. And like what you could do would potentially, because birds were almost completely wiped out, they were still hit very hard by this mass extinction. You know, like the Enantiornithines, like opposite birds, were completely wiped out, and like the full-on modern bird groups were almost entirely wiped out. So like you could have like one Vagavus species be the only surviving species of the bunch in the extinction segment to really showcase that. There's also Conflicto here, it's like, which might be a basal hold on, I have to go to the post-extinction segment for this so I can, let me read this. Presbyornithid, yeah. Conflicto was a presbyornithid, like a basal one. Now, it's mainly, officially it's from like the earliest Paleocene, but it could have potentially have been around in the late Maastrichtian. But yeah, I would definitely have like an indeterminate presbyornithid survive, and, you know, like into being part of like the post-extinction segment. Well, alongside the likes of Crossvalia, which is one of the earliest penguins we know of, at least one of the earliest from Antarctica, which is from the late Paleocene via the Cross Valley Formation and such. As well as, you know, we do have some crocodilian remains, and the closest, granted, they're still indeterminate, so like the closest I could find would be some kind of caiman, like a prehistoric caiman, and like here you got like the Cuvier's dwarf caiman for reference. You could potentially even show some altered footage of like one of these things to fill in the gaps, so to speak. But to also showcase the rise of mammals, I would include the basal Strapothere, Trigonostylops, which we do know from Antarctica at this time. So yeah, it would also segue pretty nicely into the next episode. And oh boy, this next episode was a bit of a doozy to make, but here we go. That being called When the Andes Rose, which takes the place of When the Continents Collided. Now, for those who aren't aware, like When the Continents Collided is basically the episode that talks about the extinctions related to like the Great American Interchange, but I don't think it does a great job with that. And the Great American Interchange like started like all as far as back to like the later Miocene, and is arguably still going on today. And in my opinion, that event, that massive multi-million year event, would be like, that's like been going on for almost 10 million years. It'd really be something I feel like would be more suited to have its own multi-part paleo documentary series, like have like of at least like 6 parts, or like 4 to 6 parts. So yeah, and so, but but I still wanted it to like focus on like Latin America and such. So what I wanted to do, so I decided to go with like the Middle Miocene climatic disruption, which was a semi-extinction event of sorts that happened a lot across much of the world. But South America was also bared the brunt of this a little bit because, albeit for differing reasons, not only was like, you know, the Middle Miocene disruption caused by like the return of like many massive amounts of Antarctic ice sheets, but there was also in the South America specifically, like the Andes were continuing to rise, and because of that, like prior to like the Andes fully reaching their apex, South America actually had like a giant inland sea almost, or like a giant wetlands, mainly showcased in like the P-Bass formations, like the Middle Miocene and such, or rather over much of the Miocene, from early to like late Miocene and such. Like right here, like this would be like the geographical boundaries of that giant P-Bass formation inland sea sort of thing. That'd be almost brackish at times at its peak. It wasn't an extinction event that created the Andes Mountains. It just happened alongside the Middle Miocene disruption. In a way, it's kind of part of it in a sense. Similar to how like the Deccan Traps could be argued as part of like the KPG extinction event in a way, like part of the main pulse there. So yeah, because like South America in the Miocene, like early on, had a lot of groups that didn't make it to the end of the period, like Astrapatheres, and you know, like giant terrestrial crocodile relatives called like Sebekids, and so on. And the Sparacidonts were much more prevalent there before this disruption. So I wanted to try and figure something out and try and work with this in a way. So I would have this take place in South America around this time, and focus on like how the rise of the Andes and similar orogenies around this time like redirected the flow of much of this water to the north, instead shifting it to the east, and how that affected the like much of South America's ecosystems, resulting in like a slight drying of like South America, and thus the extinction of a lot of these groups. And to highlight that especially, I would have this episode's main protagonist be like one of the last Sebekids, known as Langstonia, around 13 million years ago in the Middle Miocene and such. It was basically, again, a large land croc in a sense. And similarly, I would include like the large derived Astrapathere, Helicotherium, like Castanediae is the smaller species of the two, which is, according to my research, about the size of like a black rhino, whereas the other one was about as big as like an African forest elephant. But yeah, would unfortunately be on like the smaller species of the two. I would include an indeterminate terror bird, because while the terror birds mainly lived further south in like Argentina, we do have like fossil evidence that there might have been some terror birds like the outskirts of these wetlands, from like indeterminate remains from these fossil sites and such. I think at least from La Venta. So I would definitely like do that in a sense as like a bit of foreshadowing. And I would of course include like the colossal caiman, like the largest crocodilian to ever live, Parasaurus, specifically like the species Nevensis, like again, and maybe show it hunting like a giant, you know, like hunting, like maybe catching like an injured or weakened Helicotherium, something like that, to really showcase like the diversity of like crocodilians, like show at least two of them to showcase like the diversity of niches they had. Like you could include even more of them, like Morosukis and such, but I just chose not to for this listing. Then you could also have like similarly, like you could also go a bit slightly gun-ho of like utilizing some live action footage to save on budget. You could use some live action footage of like some this is one of the first episodes where you could really use like some live action footage of like modern day Amazonian animals and just tweak it a little bit of CGI. For example, like Neocimeri is like the genus that includes modern squirrel monkeys, and either Anectens or Fieldsy could be featured in this, and you could just use a modern squirrel monkey as like a fill-in. Same with like Pristis, which is like sawfish genus, Paleosuchus, which includes some dwarf caimans, Pebanista is a genus of extinct genus of river dolphins, of Amazonian river dolphins. So You could definitely use some live action footage of like Amazonian river dolphins and like just tweak it a little bit of CGI. And like it's so many various species of freshwater fish, like or genre of freshwater fish like Potamotrigon, for instance, and so on, and to prove that like here you got this mural like the P-Bass formation made by the ever so talented Joshua Kanape to really showcase that. There were also like manatees at the time. You also have the Gavialid Gripasuchus, and like again, like here is like this is like the Miocene, Argentinian Miocene, and possibly Pliocene terror bird Devonsenzia for reference. I don't think I would have like my indeterminate terror birds be this big in like this segment, but it's just to give a rough idea, you know. And again, like you could really save on budget. You could really do something. This is the first time you could probably do something. First time in the series, you could really go gun ho if we'll have live action villains, save on budget and such. And like I would also include the mylodonted ground sloth, Magdalena Brady's, which you see here, because if you look right here, you got like another mylodonted Scelidotherium for reference, and that's because like this mylodonted sloth would segue more into like the post-extinction segment, or rather post P-Bass segment, which would be like a 10 million year time skip to the San Gregorio Formation of Venezuela. So that's still like northern South America, so close enough. Around 3 million years ago, I would still include like an indeterminate terror bird having more of a prominent role as like a more of an apex predator. Oh, the music stopped. Give me a moment. Actually, I got an idea. Instead of Celestial Theta, let's go concentration. Yeah, that'll do. I should probably get some better music, find some better royalty-free... I should probably find some better royalty-free music tracks, but for now, this will do fine. But yeah, this will focus on like San Gregorio Formation of Venezuela. It would include like Falcanotoxodon, an indeterminate mylodonted sloth, and again for reference, this is like a mylodonted sloth we know more of, like Scelidotherium for reference and such. So think of it like that. Right here is like a megatherid ground sloth. So for completeness sake, I just included this. But yeah. And again, you could have like, you know, we have like the genus that includes like from this formation, you have the likes of genuses that include like modern red-footed tortoises, anacondas, and there's also extinct species of modern crocodile, falconensis, which you could potentially have be portrayed with like a modern American crocodile or even Orinoco crocodile, potentially, with some minor CJ alterations, and they could still do the job quite well. Again, I didn't go as gung-ho with the post-extinction segment because, like, it wouldn't have as much runtime to feature as many creatures, but, again, like, this mural I got here would definitely like, showcase some of the diversity. And finally, you would have, like, Cyanasua, which is a member of the Procyonids, the raccoon family, which also includes, like, likes of coatis and ringtails and so on. And, you know, Procyonids originated in North America, so, like, you could have some narration that showcases, like, Cyanasua, and how, and basically saying that, like, this is what's now fully underway is the Great American Interchange, and then cut to the present day segment. So that way you can still give at least some lip service to, like, the Great American Interchange. It's just, I personally feel like it would work, that event would work better as its own series, because, like, the Great American Interchange happened in, like, waves, sort of. It didn't really peak until around the Pleistocene, really. So, that's what I would do. Yeah. Finally, and we're actually quite ahead of time here with this live stream, but I'm not complaining too much. The raccoons that entered South America, I think I might have been around the Pleistocene, so yeah. But yeah, hold on, let me get some water real quick. Finally, for episode 8, I would have it be titled When the Weather Snapped, which would basically, it would basically be when America flooded, but it won't focus on like, a lot of the it would be set during the Younger Dryas, the main extinction segment, but it would still have a few notable changes. For one, that would actually include like 2 protagonists in this episode, both Arctodicimus, the short-faced bear, and the modern American black bear, and showcase like the struggles both go through like during the Younger Dryas, and showcase like why one survives while the other goes extinct over the next 1,000 years. Excuse me. Because basic stuff, like Arctodus is bigger, requires more food. In the Younger Dryas, things are tough, and while the American black bear is able to better persevere through its smaller size. Same with like grizzly bears and so on. Basic stuff like that. I would also have the American mastodon be like specified as such, and not just mastodon, because there's the American mastodon as well as the Pacific mastodon and so on. Speaking of proboscideans, I would actually not have the woolly mammoth in this episode. Instead, I would have like the ground sloth Megalonyx jeffersoni take its place to better link back towards the previous episode of like ground sloths and such. As for how this would affect like the post-extinction segment around like that takes place around like 9,000 BCE, I would have it be like where like the last 2 American mastodons in the world are 2 lonely males that are in the midst of must, and in a desperate effort to like try and like they both try and fight each other over territory, and in the chaos, that's when the human hunters come and hunt down at least one of the 2 mastodons. Something like that. And like this could also be a real budget saver, this revamp, because like you could just basically use like live action footage of like American black. You could just shoot a bunch of live action footage of like American black bear family, and like the events they go through and the struggles they go through, and contrast that with the Arctodicimus, or giant short-faced bear, and such. Like, of course, the flooding element would be largely taken out because a lot of those end Pleistocene floods occurred in Western North America, whereas I would have mine revamp take place in Virginia, where a lot of the fossil proof I got for this episode comes from, and such. Because in Virginia and West Virginia and such, like that border between the 2 states is where like you see a lot. There is proof of a lot of fossils of both, a decent amount of fossils of both late Pleistocene American black bears and giant short-faced bears. So I think that that would be my main reasoning there. Like the dire wolves, I would have like be designed a little differently. Maybe a bit of red to their fur, so they don't look like just enlarged gray wolves and such. I would still have Servalsi Scotti in the episode, but I wouldn't have it survive a goddamn drop from a waterfall, only losing an antler. Like that would probably kill it, or at least gravely injure it for it to get picked off by the dire wolves. Again, it's this series' problem of just being a bit too happy hunky-dory at times, when it should focus more on extinction. But yeah, like, again, you could still have like the mother short-faced bear fighting off, like trying to ward off like the aggressive male, as well as like trying to steal food from like a group of hunter-gatherers and such. Like that all works fine in my opinion. I wouldn't have like the giant short-faced bear portrayed as almost hyper-carnivorous in a sense. Like it was mostly an omnivore in a sense, maybe slightly more carnivorous, but not by much. Again, I would just have like the main factor of extinction compared to American black bear be like, differences in size and thus requiring more food. American black bear gets a bit more lucky, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's how I would revamp that final episode of Surviving Earth, mainly. And this little mini project really wouldn't be possible without like the paleobiology database and its navigator. Like it is amazing. It showcases like the scientific sources, the journals as to where like the fossils are sourced from, their locations and everything. It is absolutely wonderful. All the images I use in this are under fair use for like, educational purposes, but also might as well include like the Creative Commons link here and such. and so on. If anybody would like to see me do more of these, I'm more than down to do that. Like, maybe a revamp of, like, Prehistoric Planet Ice Age, or even Walking with Dinosaurs 2025, or something like that. Again, that's not set in stone yet, but I've already been seeing that there's been a slight view increase, so it's just me rambling and such and giving my basic thoughts. Like, I don't have, like, a doctorate in, like, paleontology or whatever, but I am decently knowledgeable on the subject, so I just thought, why not try that? And such. Yeah. And finally, like, here are some, like, the other scientific sources that are loosely used here, like journals I found and such, or what the Wikipedia links brought me to and such, and so on, like Milosaurus being rather basal, Milosaurus being rather basal, and like Onchopristis is stuff about Onchopristis, a giant sawfish, and so on. And yeah, I'm surprised I got through that in just a little over an hour. I thought this was going to go on until 10, but hey, this a shorter stream probably isn't that bad after all. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, that'll be it for this. That'll be it for this stream then, basically. Again, but I'll give like the very short TLDR version of everything really fast. Let me get some water first. Ugh. God. When I get back to working on the Combafauna project, my throat's probably going to become a desert from all the talking I'll have to do and so on, but it's complicated there. But yeah, so basically, pros, triple segment format, healthy speculative biology, strong creature design. My personal main problems, janky pacing, too many happy outcomes, scientific inaccuracies even for the time production, and chronologically out of order. Only some minor creature changes for when the ocean shrank. I would have went with the Olsen's extinction in place of the Carboniferous rainforest collapse, but there's just not enough fossil tetrapods and such that really allow me to make this work, so my arm was kind of forced here. But yeah, I would just swap out some of the genre, some of the taxa to stuff that would more likely die off or like be more related to the Carboniferous rainforest collapse and such. When the Earth burned, I would keep largely the same, just adding a few more critters and maybe make the Inostrancevia a tad less lion-like. But otherwise, keep pretty much the same and make this Cybonda spondylus less orca-like. Replace when the climate broke with when Pangea fracture, and respectively replacing the Cranium Pluvial episode of this discussion and showcase like Jurassic mass extinction and such, and have it be entirely on the Elliott formation and such, showcasing like how it played a role in the rise of the dinosaurs. When the seas died, main segment keeps largely the same, just add a few more taxa, swap out Ichthyornis for an Enantiornithian, and so on. Make the ending of this not so hunky-dory. Well, slightly revamping like the post-extinction segment more to be in like a Hungarian formation from the Santonian. When the asteroid fell, swap out Alaska for Antarctica, Prince Creek for various formations from Seymour Island, actually show the goddamn impact wildfires and firestorms, because this would have happened pretty much everywhere to varying degrees and such, and focus it on like the birds that would likely make it through, such as the Vagavids, which very likely did make it through extinction, at least for a little while. And such, while contrasting out with the deaths of many of the non-avian dinosaurs, than all of them, and such, for like relating to that bird motif more in the post-extinction segment, while also mentioning, but now, while the birds are now more diverse than ever, it is also the mammals' time to rise. You know, that kind of stuff. When the continents collided gets replaced with when the Andes rose. Because I do think, like, again, the Great American Interchange, in my opinion, is something that's better suited to have its own documentary series, in my opinion, so, yeah. And the rest explains itself, and the rest speaks for itself in that sense. And finally, and again, like, you know, about it mainly focusing like the end of the P-Bass wetlands and what comes after that, before briefly mentioning the Great American Interchange. And then finally, the episode surrounding younger Dryas gets some slight modifications and has a bit of like a compare contrast story in the main extinction segment. So yeah, that would pretty much be it. Thank you all so much for watching. Tomorrow will be a Lego Jurassic World stream that's meant to pay tribute to the late Sam Neill, who portrayed Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park 3, and Jurassic Park Dominion, I believe, and such. I'm actually not a huge Jurassic Park fan, but I felt like doing this next stream anyways, as out of respect for the franchise and Sam Neill's contributions to it and so on. So yeah, that'll be it for this stream. I'm going to head back to working on Combafauna and also watch the first three Jurassic Park films in full, finally. And I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.